What's up, Reese? How's it going, man?
What's up, man? Wait,
And
we're live
how
right now?
we're live. Oh, we're live right now. You're not going to see it on YouTube because there's going to be about a 15-second delay. But
Okay.
here's what we need the audience to do real quick, if you guys don't mind. Backbending, LeBoy twins, anybody who's in the chat right now, if you could let me know how my vocal volume sounds compared to Reese over here. Let me know if I need to go up or he needs to go up or I need to go down, and we'll get it going. But good to have you guys here. We got some juicy topics for today. For anybody who did not read the description, which, by the way, the topics that we'll be covering in this live stream, which are good talking points for the leopard gecko hobby, are going to be on shed testing, and we're going to kind of play back and forth with the pros and cons of that. We're going to play back and forth with the topic of naming your own projects and whether that should be done, shouldn't be done, if it's only for, experienced breeders in the hobby, or how experienced you need to be to, name your own projects, some of the risks associated with that. We're also going to talk about just having open dialogue in the hobby, because you never truly know how smart you are or how much information you are comfortable about until your ideas are challenged, and until other people and other perspectives, or other people could bring other perspectives, and you can really test yourself. The old saying is true: 2 heads are better than 1. Well, we have a whole hobby full of heads. We have dozens or hundreds of breeders that sometimes they might see something that you did not see from a certain perspective. And so it's beneficial to collaborate and have open dialogue within the hobby. We're going to talk about line bred percentages, because this was a topic that me and Reese were talking about last night. Should more than Black Knight be mentioned when it comes to the percentage of genetics inside of an animal? Should you know how much bold stripe is in an animal? Because maybe, Reese, maybe you know this, sometimes you could have a 50% bold stripe that actually has perfect stripes. I've bred bold stripes to non-bold stripes, and some of the babies pop out with stripes. So technically, I'm calling that baby a bold stripe, but it's showing bold stripe, but it only has 50% of the actual DNA. And so when people are purchasing investment animals, wouldn't that be good for them to know? They could always ask the breeder behind the scenes, but we'll talk on those kind of topics a little bit. Color expectations, photo versus reality. This is a big one that leopard geckos get hit hard with. I think because maybe you might have some thoughts on this, but I think it's the bright neon colors of leopard geckos that just that they don't get picked up so well by the camera. So a lot of people will throw on filters or oversaturate their videos, and that's bad for the whole hobby because it sets unrealistic expectations of what you're paying for, number one, and then you don't want to show it off, right? Because when you're filming it, it looks like crap, and so you show off the photo of the breeder that like edited and doctored the photo, and then you show off that, but you don't show off the actual animal. Big problem in our hobby. And lastly, another topic that Reese brought up, which was a great suggestion, the power of outcrossing. I've spoken on it a ton in on my platform, but me and Reese were talking about it the other day, especially in reference to clown and certain people breeding clowns to clowns and getting ugly looking clowns or clowns that don't hold their color. So we're going to talk a little bit about why pure is not always best, and we're going to kind of go into down that rabbit hole. So I wish we had a wheel. Reese, why don't you give us the 30-second introduction of who you are for the people who don't know, and then why don't you recommend one of these topics for us to jump into?
Ooh, I gotta start it off. All right. Well, my name's Reese Lopez. Do House of Reps. Been breeding for about 5 years. You can call me a COVID breeder. I came in during the COVID boom, if you want to. But yeah, I mean, that's it. 30 seconds. That's me.
Wow,
so,
bro, that was like 10 seconds. But hey, sometimes people go way over. I'm a big talker. So if you tell me 30 seconds, I'll probably be speaking for like 3 minutes or something.
Yeah,
but it's nice.
I mean, shoot, we could jump into any of them, dude. Usually the conversation just flows, I'm sure, once we start with one.
Yeah. Why don't we, to keep it easy so we don't lose track, if you like this idea, why don't we just go in order of what the description of the live states? So the first thing will be shed testing. And this, we were talking about this a little bit last night. When we were on the phone. the ball python world is experiencing this right now. But why don't you start with what did you say to me that kind of kicked off that conversation and why we thought it would be a good topic to talk about on a live? Do you remember?
Forgot. Nope. But
it was.
I remember us talking, but I forget what started it.
I think what you said was somebody you knew had said to you that they don't want shed testing to come.
Oh, yeah. So some people don't want the shed testing for leopard geckos, and I thought that was pretty interesting take on it. You know, because we want to know. You know, we got people overseas trying to fight for shed testing, and it's help out the ball pythons. But after talking with you, I've heard that it also hurt, I guess, some ball python breeders. And so I guess it's always going to be a battle of back and forth. Some will like it, some will not. I'm on the side where I like it. I think it would be beneficial for leopard gecko breeders for sure, to no more hidden head stuff. You know, we can dial in on projects a lot easier without, you know, having to go through all the heartache of byproduct animals trying to sell them and stuff like that. So I'm on that side of the fence. How'd you feel about it though?
Yeah, let me define shed testing real quick. Sorry, I forgot. So shed testing is a lot easier with snakes than geckos because snakes leave behind their shed. Geckos eat their shed. But there's other ways to DNA test a gecko. You can, in the snake world, they even started sending in the eggs. So like the egg contains the DNA of each individual snake, if I'm remembering that correctly. So like that might even be possible with leopard geckos. But swab testing, so it doesn't necessarily have to be shed.
I heard about the swab.
Yeah,
which I thought would be hard with leopard geckos.
Yeah. Well, when you go like this to them, you touch them on the mouth like that, a lot of them will give it an open. But so shed testing, just in simplicity, guys, is the ability to send the shed from a specific gecko into a scientific laboratory that has already decoded the genetic code, the entire genetic code of a leopard gecko, and they've also found the locations of all the different genes that exist within leopard geckos. This took years to do, and they're still doing this in the ball python world. So it's nothing that can be done right away. There's a lot of testing.
Yeah, but there's definitely able to start it though, because I did talk to one guy who, because it intrigued me a lot. It's something everybody talks, but there's no plan of action. So I talked to the guy what would need to be started, and he told me there's already working genome on it, which he said was great, because without that we wouldn't be able to actually start or do anything. So he said he found the working genome. So now what for my part was, which I've been slacking on that part, but I need to start finding and saving tremper sheds. And he said let's start with one albino. What's the most common? And tremper is the most common. So he said to start with those, collect them, save them, but then also I needed a group of breeders to help out too, so it's not all just from one breeder. You know, it's multiple things to test against. So if we can get single gene testing for the tremper stuff, then that would start, you know, opening up the pathway to do it. But like you said, they eat it, so it's kind of a pain in the arse to save it sometimes if you don't catch them shedding. So
yeah, you kind of have to catch them right before shed, which when their skin is already ready to pop off. On that note, real quick, that's another thing that makes shed testing to make shed testing accurate. It's not good enough that they just get your trempers. They need to get trempers from like 10 different breeders across the hobby, and hundreds. We're talking about hundreds of different samples.
Lots of samples.
A lot of those animals too are going to be secretly het for things. And so when they're laying out the genetic code, anytime that there's a spike in the genetic code, as far as it differs from the natural genetic code of an animal, they'll see like a spike, or they'll see like a mark in the genetic reading that something is different at this locus point, at this area in the DNA. And it could be one of those hidden hets, right? So like it could be pinging the eclipse gene, when in reality you're sending in trempers, which is a recessive gene, but eclipse is also recessive, and a lot of trempers just naturally have eclipse already in it. So there's going to be multiple areas of the DNA that is pinging as abnormal from the normal set of DNA, and that's why they need hundreds and hundreds of samples. Yeah, they need a lot. But like you said, the genome for leopard geckos has been known for a long time. It's one of the reasons why Dr. Longhua Guo, who did the lemon frost study, it's one of the reasons they were able to just jump right in is because the genome of leopard geckos has already been known to the scientific community for a long time. And I know I talked in my Supergiant video about Geckos, etc., working with Dr. Longhua Guo to identify the blizzard gene, the Max Snow gene, the white and yellow gene. They're already working on that. When they're going to make that public, if they're going to make that public, or what the purpose is.
Oh, so somebody already is working on that?
Yeah. If you watch, for anyone who wants to watch my Supergiant video, near the end, there's a post that Steve from Geckos, etc. made where he shows Dr. G was at his facility like in 2020 or 2021 or something. And they were swabbing, or they were DNA testing all different kinds of genes. So the blizzard gene, the Max Snow gene, the albino gene, all that stuff. So that I think what they're planning on doing is finding out where these genetic markers are located in the DNA, so that will also help shed testing kind of get propelled forward.
But when we were talking though, do you think that is going to be beneficial though? Because like we were saying,
great way to bring it back, because I told you I go round in circles and then
I got you.
Rabbit trails. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so you know what I'm saying. Like I'm all for it, just because as a breeder, I think it would answer a lot of questions and then start new conversations. But
all right, I'll play devil's advocate.
We keep going in the same conversations with testing and this is a head for that. We got to figure it out. Or you know what I mean? And so with that, there might be new recessives we don't know about because without the testing, or you know what I mean? It could be opening doors for more conversation and dialing down on projects without having the same why does this work with this way, and but it won't combine with this. You know, we can, I think, answer those questions finally once we get those results and be able to, you know, again, dial into whatever project you're personally working on to make it better, or you know, switch it up if you didn't like it. But definitely think it would help the breeder. Now I did hear, like you say, you're gonna play devil's advocate, but I heard other people's perspective was, well, it'll definitely mess up the market. You know, it'll take away a lot of the work from certain projects, which is why they get valued at a higher price, you know, instead of they got to the result a lot quicker, which I guess would be a little kind of whack, but I think it'll create new stuff still. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So before I argue you on the opposite side of that, since you're taking the affirmative that it's good for for leopard geckos, I'll take the negative. And these could be argued from both sides. So we're just kind of having fun with this. Again, we want to push our understanding and challenge our understanding to get a better grasp on what's the best decision, like for us, right? So, but Washington says, does ball python shed test show other genetics that were undiscovered? So you would have to ask. So RGI is a big company that is doing, they're probably the main company right now that's doing the ball python shed testing. To my knowledge, like I said, picture a straight line of DNA, just for simplicity. Yeah, picture a straight line of DNA for what is called the normal type. No mutations. The normal wild type looking ball python, a black and brown and gold snake. Now, if you're looking at the genetic code from a scientist perspective, when something is abnormal, let's just use this metaphor, they will see a spike in the genetic code that goes like above this straight line to show you that something is going on at that location in the DNA that is abnormal to the wild type. But I think, and I'm not talking to RGI behind the scenes, I think they won't actually know what that is until they get animals where they're like, okay, this is a het albino animal. And then they look at that spike and they're like, okay, they can like pin where the albinism gene is based on them receiving some information ahead of time on what that animal should be. I don't know if they could just pluck it out of thin air and just be like,
okay, I don't think out of thin air.
Yeah, at this location that must be albino. I'm not sure
if they got enough data and you know start putting it together or something. And
yeah,
then,
but I actually sent RGI an email. I wanted to interview him, and that's a good question that I could ask.
I think that'd be dope. He can better explain and break it down, you know, and show people.
All right, let me take the negative now. This is why shed testing is not going to be good for leopard geckos, Reese.
Tell me why.
So what happened in the ball python market is recessive genetics in the ball python market are always the most valuable, always. And do you know why, Reese? Why are recessives the most?
Well, yeah, because you need 2 copies to create the visual, so it's going to be harder work to get that result.
Exactly. Recessive genes take longer, number one, and especially to work out a project, number one, and especially for ball pythons where most female ball pythons are not ready to breed until 2 or 3+ years. And so those guys are already waiting a long period of time to breed an animal. And then now you add potential hets and recessives onto that. That's extending those projects for a long time. And what shed testing did is shed testing took away all of that. Yeah, it just knocked out all of the work, so to speak, so that immediately, as soon as a baby is born, you send that shed test in, and they will tell you this animal is het for clown, it's het for puzzle, it's het for lavender albino, speaking about ball python genetics. And now you no longer have to grow that animal up. It no longer extends the hard work that needs to go into the project. If the animal is het, you sell it as a het, or you hold it back to rebreed it, or you just whatever you want to do with it, but you know immediately what's inside the animal. There's no longer a guessing game that extends the projects of time. So whenever in the leopard gecko world, whenever you have a project that takes a long time to work into fruition, the value of that project is going to significantly go up. Now, Reese, we were talking about this yesterday. Why does the value drop so quickly, even on brand new genes discovered in the leopard gecko world compared to the ball python world?
Oh, yeah, it's because they could just be reproduced faster, within the year and a half that it came out. So definitely a faster process. But see, with the shed testing, how you said it cut down the work, I see that as beneficial. Then we won't be oversaturated in the market with a bunch of byproducts, of animals that aren't moving, aren't selling. You don't want to work with them. You know what I mean? Stuff like that, because it would be just easier to pinpoint what you can work with and move and sell without having all the byproducts building up and, and then again, oversaturated the market. Then you got people complaining, oh, there's too many of this. And, that comes from trying to breed certain things. So if you eliminate that, you can get the result you want. Like I said, progressive project, but it would eliminate a lot more byproducts in the meantime that are just getting flipped and sent to a rescue, or, getting, whatever. They take it, don't want it no more, whatever, whatnot. But it would just eliminate, I think, a lot more byproduct stuff as well when you're working on things.
Yeah, I do agree. And I'll say what you probably didn't want to say is there's a lot of breeders that actually breed their leopard geckos at 6 months old. They just power feed them, get them up to size, and they breed them at 6 months old. I've bred geckos at 6 months old before. It's not my preferred way to do it, but I wanted to experiment with different weight ranges of leopard geckos and know for myself what are the pros, what are the cons, what are the risks, so that I can tell others. I always encourage people to wait over a year, if possible, before they breed their geckos. Make sure they're also up to size. But the fact of the matter is, the unspoken fact of the matter is, a lot of people are breeding you can get a leopard gecko up to breeding size within 6 months easily if that gecko is eating and you're feeding it a lot. Yeah. And a lot of breeders will just do that. So you have 3 years. Yeah, you got 3 years for a female ball python, and you got 6 months. That's literally, I don't know the math on that. I think that's like 6 times quicker you're able to reproduce leopard geckos. So that's why brand new ball python morphs go for $50,000, and brand new leopard gecko morphs, which we haven't, correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't had one since Cypher, right? Cypher was the last new one.
Yeah, recessive wise. I mean,
recessive
new stuff. I think there's something new popping out right now. I haven't really talked to the guy who popped it out. I've been seeing it. The satin. I don't know if you heard of it.
Oh yeah, that's old though. That's actually old. That's from.
See, that's what I thought. But then when you talk to the guy, apparently it's new. I don't know, because I thought it was old too, but I was wrong. So when I reached out and asked him
to him behind the scenes too, but when did he say it he
Well, like
discovered.
I said, I never talked to the guy exactly. I never talked
Yeah.
to him. It's somebody in his area who
I'm
also
trying to
works.
get him on a live stream. He doesn't want to do it. His English isn't good. So
Yeah, probably the broken English stuff.
yeah, I do message him though. Like I actually message him on Facebook
cool.
and Instagram. But to my knowledge, it goes back at least, if I'm remembering correctly, it goes back at least to like 2019, at least, because
so right around the same time Cypher, pretty much.
Yeah, and
Cypher a little bit before that.
Didn't John say that some people John didn't officially like proclaim Cypher till like 2019, but didn't he say that people were starting to recognize that something was different even in like 2014, 15 from like animals that he sold? I thought I remember him saying that on a live stream one time or something, but
no, I just remember another breeder hatched it and then kind of like hit him up and was like, hey, what's this? And he was like, oh, actually, I've been working on that. So let me go ahead and put that out now. If you're
right. Yeah.
So that's what I remember. But
okay. So I guess in concluding,
so nothing new since Cypher, I guess. Yeah,
nothing new since Cypher that we know of, right? That we know of.
Yeah.
But when a new ball python genetic comes out, it's $50,000 to $100,000. Back in the market that was 2020. Nowadays, ball python market is kind of scaling back a little bit too, as far as what the highest end projects are going for. But you're still looking at 30 to 50 grand if a brand new desirable morph was to pop out. But in leopard geckos, like I think when Cypher was first being sold, which was the newest, most recent morph, it was maybe like $2,000 or something like that for like a normal Cypher.
Shoot, I'm still seeing for normal stuff. Yeah, now you'll see that for like the rainwater Cypher stuff, which is pretty fire. I'm not gonna lie, but so those ones are up there. Apparently, it's a little harder with the rainwater, but those are so nice. But yeah, I guess nothing new since then. But still, with the shed testing, like I said, I think it'd be beneficial to get rid of byproducts, less pet quality stuff when you're trying to breed a project. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No hidden hets. No
hidden hets. You can find out if that no het animal really is no hets. You know what I mean? When you bought it because it was more expensive because it had no hets. You know, because it seemed like a wave just from listening to history and people talk nowadays. Like having hets was like the move. You know, it was very expensive, and now it's like, oh, I don't want no hets. You know, so now the no hets are more expensive. So everything goes in waves. But once you have that clarity on stuff, it helps. You know, some people, like I said, some people they want to do the work, and that's cool too. You know, I do want to do the work, but I would like to know what I really am working with versus being surprised every 2 years, 3 years, something like that.
Yeah, and that's where knowing your niche comes into play too, because to this day in the ball python market, people still love it when there's hidden hets. They're like, great, an extra gene. Extra genes always make animals more valuable in the ball python world. But in the leopard gecko world, it's opposite. People are like, oh man, I didn't want a hidden het kind of thing, you know? So we'll just answer backbending real quick. How old does a gecko have to be sold as a pet to somebody? I know we were kind of touching on that on the live stream Friday.
Oh yeah,
Friday. But I typically won't sell geckos unless they're like 15, 20 grams, usually around 20 plus.
15 plus for me.
And actually, my preference, Reese, is to hold geckos until they're like 40 grams, so I know the quality of pattern and color. But a lot of people want geckos younger, number one. And this topic is going to be a topic that we touch on. A lot of leopard geckos look so good when they're younger, so people market them and the way they look when they're younger. And so if you want to compete with these other people that are marketing geckos at a certain age, it's almost like you have to do that too, or else you are set, you know, as a business, you are pushing yourself behind a little bit, because people are going to be looking at baby photos or juvenile photos from another guy, and they're going to be seeing green colors, purple colors, bright orange colors. Then they're looking at the gecko grown up, and those colors have faded, and they're like, wait, why don't you have good looking geckos? And little do they know that the same gecko looked the same way as this baby photo or juvenile photo that they're considering. But that's where education comes in, I think. And we as the leopard gecko content creators and leaders, so to speak, you know, people that other people are looking up to, we got to do our due diligence to like educate and bring awareness to these things so people aren't caught off guard. So
speaking of talking about marketing for leopard geckos, what about those names though?
yo, you're good with it, man.
What
You're good
about
with
those
it.
names though, man?
Yeah, so naming projects, we've discussed this, that a lot of people frown on it in the leopard gecko hobby over the years.
Such a weird
Naming,
thing.
huh?
Such a weird thing. Yeah.
Yeah, people have frowned on it, and you guys know me, I'm not shy to name my projects and whatnot. So I'm sure behind the scenes, there have been a lot of people that are like laughing at me naming my projects. But to me, I see an avenue I want to work, and I want to encourage my followers and the people that follow me. Hey, look, this is the way that I identify specific markers in geckos so that I can create a project out of it. So like I'm teaching people how to do that on their own, number one, but then also as that project continues, people can see the end goal, like what I had in mind. They can see the beginning and then they can see the end, so to speak, as time goes on. So to me, it's something that's valuable. It's fun.
So,
people love
so you're
names.
saying it has to make sense with the project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, have you heard my Owl Eyes project? That's a new one I'm promoting right now.
I've seen that one.
Which okay, so if you think about this, I'm certainly not the first one to pop out geckos with circles on the top of their head. This has been going back for years.
And that was about to say that's like a common trait with a lot of stuff.
It's fairly common with bold stuff and fireball stuff.
But just a point on it though, because it's a common trait, it can pop out in multiple lines, multiple morphs or whatever. But the point of the project is whatever you're doing to expand on it. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
people might miss the point. Like I just said, that's on other geckos too. That's on other stuff. That doesn't mean I have an owl eye project or whatever.
Right.
But whatever you're doing to make it bigger, make it different, do they come whatever the goal is for it, it's obviously going to be different than just the two white dots on the head. You know what I mean?
It will be my definition of naming a project is you want to build towards consistency. For example, if I take 2 black knights, the goal is always to produce a pitch black animal for the most part, right? Let's just kind of, there's a lot of different directions you go with black knight. So taking that into Owl Eyes, the goal with the Owl Eyes project is, don't you think that some customers find it cool that the gecko has 2 circles that look like owl eyes on the head? And as the breeder, wouldn't you want to be able to take 2 animals that you've selectively bred and you've condensed the DNA you've refined the DNA for so long that all of their babies pop out with owl eyes? So what I go for with naming a project is consistency. I want to produce a certain look consistently after working it out from a certain bloodline and project over the years. That's my goal, not just not just like a random owl eyes popping out. I want consistency from a specific worked line.
Yeah, and that's where it should be. You should have like a consistent goal, something you're trying to achieve, and not just a silly name, for something. Sometimes we talked about, sometimes it starts off as a silly name too, as like a nickname. It's not very serious, but then once the project maybe develops a little bit more serious, then then that nickname kind of came into fruition. But sometimes it do start off silly and maybe it won't make sense at that time, but if you continue and be consistent, like I said, then now you have something. Now you have something to be like, okay, you can call this a line or something like that. And everybody talks about how long it wait or whatever. And I don't really have an opinion on that either, because.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. So you started breeding in what year?
2020, I started collecting, produced my first season, 2021. All
right. So let's just say 5 years you've been breeding, so to speak, collecting and breeding.
5 years.
How has your view on naming projects changed? Because recently you've started naming a bunch of projects, right? I don't know if you want to spit out some of those names, but on your channel, which we do want to promote, Reese's YouTube channel, you can see it in the background of his thing there, House of Reps, which we do need to touch on that topic real quick, why you want to start making videos. But
just to clarify too, when you search for House of Reps, make sure you add exotic pets or leopard gecko, because apparently House of Representatives and politics pull up obviously when you pull that up. So just to clarify that, if you do search it out, just type in the word leopard gecko 2, or it's technically called House of Reps Exotic Pets.
Gotcha. So on YouTube, it's House of Reps and Exotics, right? on
Exotic
YouTube.
Pets. Yeah. House of
Exotic
Reps,
Pets.
Exotic Pets. Yeah.
And lately, you've been dropping a bunch of videos. Why don't you just say a couple of those videos
So
of
yeah, I've been dropping a couple
names
of
and lines you've been
like my main thing was my Glacier project. That was like the first one I ever like named.
Which is what? What is the Glacier?
Is, my Albie Snow Blue Amber Eye combo morph that I'm gonna line breed.
Yeah.
And
So
to
it's a combination of a refined project line.
That's going to be line bred once visuals, which I hit this year, world first combination, and now I'm going to line breed it to make it look a little bit better, wash out more of the yellow from the snow tangerine stuff, and there's rainwater in there. I'm going to have both versions. I'll have a rainwater version, and then I want the non-rainwater version to line breed. But then I got the Goya project, which is kind of like the bandit situation, Zorro situation. That's just the name of that gecko, Goya. And then because of his look, I'm going to expand on that look. And so that's, if you watch the video, that's what I'm talking about, wanting to expand the look with the bright reds and the white and yellow, enhancing it, you know, and the striping and all that good stuff.
Oh, and then I got like Goya is hot sauce. Is Goya hot sauce or something? I know
Goya is hot sauce. Yeah,
you showed me a bottle the other day on stream.
Oh yeah, I just put them in the fridge today. They've been in this room the whole time.
That makes sense now. Why it's okay? It's called Goya. Okay,
yeah, it looks like the bottle. So like with the white and yellow has the same type of yellowness as the bottle cap, and then the reddish orange of the sauce. And I don't know. Sorry.
And then wasn't there another?
Again, it starts off silly, but then it becomes something, you know. And then I have the Space Ghost project that I was working on. And yeah, that was silly again, but
a little silly, but
Cypher, it's Albie Snow Ghost Cypher stuff with extreme bold lineage. So it's going to be, you know, black and white geckos, hopefully with a lot of bold markings and the black eyes. So like some space ghost creature, but you know, they had that old character, Space Ghost. I don't know if anybody ever watched that. So it just reminded me of that for some reason, and that's why I named it that. Also with the word ghost in morph. So it kind of goes hand in hand, but yeah, I don't see a problem with naming something if it, you know, works for it and it's not already out there. That's the other thing too. If there's like the same combination, same type of stuff that other people are breeding all day, every day, and you just want to name that randomly, that to me is a little silly. You know what I'm saying? If it's already so common.
Yeah, right.
So if you, I do say try to find some individuality, some creativity in there when you find your naming or whatever you're trying to do with something. Try to make sure it's unique in some way. You know what I'm saying? That is key to naming a line for sure in my eyes.
And I know that we discussed that whenever you name something, especially if you're kind of a newer breeder, that's less than 10 years in, so to speak, and you're not like running with the other guys that have been in for 10 plus years, you're going to get crap. It's just what's going to happen. So like even me, a lot of people were crapping on me for naming my stuff, but number one, I think names inspire people and to have more fun with the hobby. So you look at the ball python world, they have the Pompeii combination, they have the spot nose combination. Yeah, they have so many different names for all of these
complains.
And nobody complains.
Complaining about that when you got a cotton candy, cinnamon, nacho, bumblebee, lavender, albino, red eye, whatever, and you're like, dude, what are you talking about? And it's like you just read a whole paragraph, but it's 60 names.
Yeah, and I agree. It's kind of nice to be like, yeah, I got a bumblebee, and so like in ball pythons, like a bumblebee would be a pastel spider. What am I thinking? I think it's just a pastel spider.
Yeah, you would know more than me.
Yeah,
I don't know.
The pastel spider. I was thinking there might be something else in there. I have a bumblebee puzzle. That's what I was thinking of because I have a puzzle that's also pastel and it's also spider, and it's also leopard and a bunch of other things.
See, even with that, I can see why it gets confusing for Leos. Where like for the raptor, to be example, the raptor has to have a specific look with those two genes, but you can produce Tremper eclipses all day and they're not raptors. So people will get confused like, well, it's a raptor, it's Tremper eclipse. Like, no, it still has to have a specific look. You know what I mean? Well, so I can see the confusion with some names, you know, being certain things the same as others, you know.
Remind me, we will deep dive into that topic because I call every Tremper eclipse a raptor just because the hobby has adopted to that. So even if that wasn't the original inspiration for what should be a raptor, The hobby has pretty much adopted that any Tremper Eclipse is a raptor, and so I just adopted with the hobby.
I'm not adopting that one.
I get you. That's what I'm saying.
I'm going to stand on it. That's what Tremper said. You know, that's his project. That's what he named it. So other people got tired of the confusion, and that's kind of where they adopted to go. But
yeah,
I'm going to stay not adopting that. You know what I mean? So I'm going to keep saying a raptor is specifically what a raptor is, and then if I have a Tremper Eclipse, then this is a Tremper Eclipse. You know what I mean? Granted, they're the same two genes, but it's a specific look, and so that's kind of goes back to the naming of a line or something. You know, you had a specific look, or you know what I mean. In mind,
let me ask you this then. That brings up a really good point, because sometimes when you breed two clowns to each other, they're not jungle and they're not really showing what would be descriptive of a clown. So can you still call that a clown, or should you still call that a clown, even though it doesn't fit into the definition of jungle, tangerine, emerine? What is a clown? You know?
Yeah, I mean, with that, yes, because it's still the line, and the line doesn't, you know, the line is, in that part is already the genetic, you know, makeup of that dominant. It's not dominant, it's a line, but it acts dominant. You know what I mean? So you're gonna have low expression, high expression, and with those, they're just kind of low expression versions of it. You know what I mean? But they'll still be a clown at the end of the day if that's what the blood or lineage is. So
even if they're banded,
what you're saying with that,
would you call it a clown if it was banded? Because a clown is supposed to be jungle, technically.
If it hatched out like that, because I got a clown cross right now that hatched banded, and
there's a lot
way
of
it develops, it doesn't. If once it develops a little bit more, you can, some of them you can tell like, oh, that had a band when it was a baby. But some of them, like these clowns, would hatch with the band, but then as they, you know, grow and the spots move, sometimes you can't tell it had bands unless you saw the baby picture.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying with that, but again, if it only has that lineage or blood, then I'm going to keep it like that. Versus where, like, again, raptor is such a specific one as an example too, because each one is an acronym for a certain word. So it has to have those specific things, you know. So each person who made their line is going to dictate the rules of the line. So you kind of got to fall in with those guys. And I had trouble with that in the beginning too. As a newer breeder, when I came in, I didn't know the whole clown fiasco Joker stuff. I didn't know nothing about that. I was just told a million times from all these other people, a Joker is a clown. So when I got my first Joker, I just called it a clown. I didn't call it a Joker. Matter of fact, I left that word off. But as I understood more about what I'm doing and polygenics and, you know, different traits, I was like, okay, I got to put respect on that and call it a Joker, because now I understand the mindset behind it of why it's named that way versus just, oh, a clown, a Joker, maybe that, you know, goes hand in hand. But there was a deeper meaning to it, as Matt explained. And so kind of goes back to the breeder. So history kind of takes a part in it without just knowing genetics or knowing what's in there. Sometimes the history of the purpose and, again, the goal or whatever needs to be known as well, so you can, I guess, help identify that. So,
and it would be helpful, I don't know if this will ever happen, but it would be helpful to have, you know how every company has like a board of executives that decide on like final matters for definitions for a company. So let's take the Ron Tremper, Matt Baronic example from back in the day. You might not remember this, but I forget who named it what. Ron Tremper or
like
Matt.
The universe galaxy thing.
The galaxy this is the galaxy versus the total eclipse, and both of those names still exist in the hobby today because nobody's made an executive call, or let's say Ron was on the board of executives and Matt was on the board of executives. Neither one of them were willing to submit to each other for like the betterment of the hobby, so to speak, or the easierment of the hobby. I think it would be beneficial to have like a board of leaders in the leopard gecko hobby. I don't know how realistic that is, but that would certainly help with naming projects
all day, dude.
Defining projects, right? Because just like we're arguing right here, we should have this argument on a different episode, the raptor versus the actual definition of the original raptor that Ron named. I totally get why you want to stick to that, and I respect that, and that makes sense. But I also totally get that.
So even for example, I've bought geckos from people and it says like het raptor, you know, but it's not going to produce a raptor. So that's a reason why when I was new, I would see certain things like that. I didn't understand them. I would ask my questions, do my research, and then in my own brain, I was just like, okay, well, it's just like if somebody labeled het red diamond, it's not gonna produce a red diamond. So just because it says het raptor, it's not gonna produce a raptor. It will produce tremper and eclipse stuff, but it's not gonna always produce the raptor look. You'll get lucky, hit one or two. I probably hit 1 or 2 raptors every year randomly through certain pairings. You know what I mean?
Right.
Right. But again, it's different. You know, you're not going to get that because it says het raptor. So I've even seen people like, I bought stuff that was like a blood tremper het raptor, and I'm like, wait, how is this a visual tremper het tremper? So words mean, words mean things. We have definitions for these words for a reason. And I think it's key to understand those words and not try to change them because you didn't understand them. So I think that's very important. And that's what causes a lot of confusion and conflict with certain things, because like you said, I've adopted a lot of 20 other breeders told me everything tremper eclipse is a raptor. So now that's what I'm going to do all the time. Versus, well, that's not actually what that means. So if you took the time to learn what these words and things mean, you know, I'm saying more people would probably do it, but a lot of people just give up easily and, you know, go the easy way. So now everything's a raptor when technically it's not, you know what I'm saying? So that's why it is important to know some of those things and research them and keep them in mind.
Yeah.
Why I believe that, but yeah.
No, I think that's true. I think the only way, though, to effectively implement a universal truth, so to speak, is if there are truth holders. Because otherwise, if you have Matt over here that's saying, no, this is the galaxy and I created it first, and you have Ron over here saying this is the total eclipse and I created it first, and we're going to keep our own names. If that's the case, times a million, and everybody does that with everything in the hobby never gets anywhere. And that's kind of, you and I have kind of discussed this a little bit, where the hobby is torn in so many different directions. And for the most part, all of the leaders, like John Gecko Boa, he's a leader. Suburban Gecko, I haven't seen him for a while, but he's a leader. Like, he's got videos, he's been around for a long time. Obviously, when Bubba was in, Bubba was a leader. Your girl Heidi, I was gonna say Heidi, a leader. You know what I mean? Seth, a leader. Like, everybody is leaders within their own way, but people tend to click up and niche up in this hobby, and they only listen to the people within their niche, and then other leaders that deserve as much respect as these other groups because they've been in it as long, or they have their own followings. It's like everybody gets locked into their own leaders and their own followings, and none of that ever gets brought like together as a whole. So I know you and I have discussed that. Well,
I mean, I feel you. I've definitely seen it within the last year and a half, but I'm not in it for the clicks and stuff like that. I just want to have fun, talk geckos, hang out with everybody. Right. You know, not everybody gets along, and that's fine. Everybody has their own experience with different people, and it's not the same experience with other people, you know? So I just try to navigate the best I can through all that and just learn, because that's what I'm here for, is just to learn and have fun and show off cool geckos. So try to avoid all that. But I think even if we had like a hierarchy to like help coin names and stuff like that, I don't know. I still feel like it would get muddied up in some way, even if there was like a set council or some type of shit, because there's always going to be somebody want to challenge it. There's always going to be somebody who's, I don't care about none of that. And, you know, there's always going to be something anyway. So it might help a small avenue of people, but as we grow older every day, man, we cannot control what people do. And so they do a lot of wild stuff. We can't comprehend why. We can only make up our own judgments of why they do these things. And so that's why it's just best to have fun with it, for sure. But definitely got to be ethical and smart about it. But you got to find that wave for yourself, you know. And so I don't think naming stuff is bad at all. It's just, again, it has to have a purpose. It has to have a goal in mind. You know, it has to have a reasoning for it, for me, for sure. Like I said, it can always start off silly, start off as a, you know, silly little thing, you know. But there's got to be a purpose behind it, for sure. So that's how I feel about the naming. I
liked your idea about you want to be careful not to step on toes of other people who have, like, let's say you discovered that there was somebody before you that had already worked the Albie Snow Bay. That was the glacier, right?
Yeah.
Then that might make you hesitate to be like, you know what, this person's already named it. I'll do that.
100%.
Yeah. Now here's the thing though, like take Tangerine, for example. It's actually good that we have multiple lines of Tangerine that people focus on because it allows for more diversity of DNA. So even if you have the Glacier project, so to speak, if somebody else wants to work their own line of Glacier and maybe even call it something else, maybe they talk to you behind the scenes and they're like, hey, look, I'm doing this, but it's another line so that we can mix these DNAs together or whatever. As long as that's worked out behind the scenes with people and the hobby is educated about it and made aware of it, it can be beneficial to have multiple different lines of the same type of
similar
color
stuff.
or morph or combo. Yeah.
That way also that helps with your project in a way of adding new blood into it with keeping the same genetics without having to inbreed too much or whatnot. So it definitely does help. It just becomes that competitive moment though, before like who hit it first. That's always going to be there. You know what I mean? So people aren't going to work together until somebody gets first. Once first happens, then everybody else will kind of fall in line and, you know, and kind of work with it then. But there's always going to be that race to the first. So, and that kind of was the thing with the Glacier. I made sure to look around. I was like, okay, not a lot of people work with Albie Snow. You know what I mean? It's kind of the lost snows of that. And then Bay, Blue Ambri is new. So I wanted to take something old, something new, put it together. I don't see a lot of people working with Bay and certain things. And if they
something
are,
old, something new, something blue. Glacier is the blue project.
You know what I'm saying?
Dang.
So it was also that or Cypher. I was going to think about Albie Cypher stuff and try to name it. But a friend of mine was already working on that and had the same. And I think he was going to call it the Arctic or something like that. So it was kind of like we were both on the same mindset at the same time without talking to each other. And it was just like, oh, if you're going to do Cypher, then yeah, I'm 100% going to do Blue Ambri. And I didn't want to do the same thing with him, you know, in that sense. But I do, like you said, with the Tangerine stuff, it makes sense because a lot of Tangerine stuff interacts differently, you know, with different things. So it's always good to cross it into certain stuff. But
and that's because those lines were refined for a certain look based on the breeder. So that's another thing. But why don't you give the 20-second answer to backbending over some tips and advice for a new gecko breeder?
First time gecko breeder needs to do. Always research. That's always number one with anything and everything. And that's not just geckos. That's infrastructure. You know, how much can you invest in it? How much time can you invest in it? You're going to need some time. And so you always got to think about how much time you want to dedicate to it. So I think research and time is always something you need to know as a first-time breeder. In infrastructure. Don't worry about buying all the geckos. Because you can have all the geckos, you're going to breed geckos, they're going to produce geckos. But if you don't have anywhere to house them over here, you know, then there's no point. So I would say always invest in equipment and infrastructure as a beginner, first-time breeder, and then kind of worry about geckos as you have more space. So, obviously I can go deeper, but that's a little 20-second.
That's good, man. That's good. I'll actually back that up by saying if there's one major change I could make going back 8 years ago, 9 years ago, whenever I was like first getting back and starting to collect, I would invest more into infrastructure because I quickly outgrew my infrastructure by breeding too many animals, and it becomes a headache and it becomes
see, as a newer breeder, I learned that lesson through you and other people watching stuff and, you know, seeing how it goes for you guys and certain things. And I just was like, I don't want to spend that much time cleaning poop, you know, spend enough time doing it. So,
okay. Well, we are on a time frame here, so let's move to the next topic. So I guess we could quickly touch on this because we've already been doing it. Open dialogue. How important do you think open dialogue is within our hobby? Challenging each other respectfully, listening to each other respectfully, and just creating a community where we can talk even if we disagree.
Yeah, I think that's very important, dude. I think it's the only thing low key and humanity that keeps it moving forward, not just a hobby, but you know, we all got to do that. But unfortunately, across the world, not just in the hobby, that's not always the case. So I think it is good to have open dialogue because even with me being new, I've seen a lot of silly situations where maybe somebody bought a gecko, produced something weird off of it, and instead of having an open dialogue with that breeder, they ended up just, you know, shunning them, like, oh, I'll never buy nothing from them again, and I'm not going to tell them about it. And now that's spread from years of just hating on that person, instead of one day just having a talk with them and figuring it out together, and then like, oh, maybe they just messed up or they didn't know what they were doing, but now they can fix it because they spoke with you and learned what they messed up on, you know, or something. You never know. And it's also how we learn how these genes work, is with open dialogue. Because if we didn't, we'd all be working a lot harder with our projects than what we would be doing. So without these dialogues and conversations and podcasts and different stuff, I don't think we would even know as much as we know today, which still is very minimum, but we know more than what we did yesterday, you know? So definitely think, have an open discussion. We learn more how these genes work with each other, interact with each other, how they don't work with each other. Maybe you wanted to do a certain project, but you've seen how other people talk about it. Now you don't want to do it because, you know, it's not something you want to, or you heard it and now it's something you want to do. You know what I mean? Like different things. So I definitely think open dialogue is just, it's good for the community as a whole to grow, but not everybody, you know, likes to talk a whole lot. I actually spoke to a guy who's been breeding 15 years. I've been following him for a minute. I've sold a gecko to him, and he's not very vocal. So when I talked to him today and learned more about him, he's like, yeah, I've been breeding 15 years, dude, and this and that. And I was like, 15 years, bro? That's a long time. You know what I mean? Like, that is a long time. Like, I should have been called you. You should be teaching me stuff right now, you know? And I ended up teaching him a little something about white and yellow. So it was just pretty cool. But again, that comes back to open dialogue. If you're in you know, secluding yourself within a hobby, you're not going to learn much, you know, more than what your little circle is. You're never going to learn past that. So definitely think it's good to knock on doors, ask questions, and, you know, see what's going on, for sure.
Yeah. And an example I'll give of that is hundreds
That's
of
right,
years.
Keep it gecko. You know what I'm saying?
We need shirts. Keep it gecko.
Keep it gecko,
a quick
bro.
example of that is the majority of the world, as far as I remember, if I'm remembering this correctly, used to think the world was flat or a different shape than a globe until the scientific community was actually able to prove it. But before the scientific community was able to prove it, you were looked at as a weirdo or the weird one out if you thought that the world was round, because everybody knew it was flat, so to speak. And so that's just an example how you gave me two great examples that prior to me getting to know you, you're relatively new, right? You've been in this for 5 years.
That's what I'm saying. I've been doing it. I've been doing it since 2021. I've only been very public since 2023.
Yes.
So only in the last 2 years have I been very social and public with the community and hobby. You know, I just at home doing geckos. Like, oh, this is cool. I'm doing it at home.
Yeah, and you told me recently, we discussed, you said two things that were deeper than any video I've ever watched from like Matt or John or any of the other people that I look up to. Yeah. Which is number one, we were talking about what causes for the blue hue within the blue amber eye. So for you guys who don't know, most eyes, like you can see my eyes are pretty dark. They're pretty black. There, look at there. They're pretty dark. They're pretty black. There's melanin in your eye. So like a leopard gecko's eye is mainly black because of the chromatophore, the melanophore, which is the black color cell. And then I had never thought of it before that there could actually be xanthophores or colored cells such as yellow, orange, red. Those colors come from xanthophores. I had never thought that that was possible with like within the eye. I never heard anybody talk about that, but that came up simply because you were inquiring into that and you were wondering the why.
Let it go.
Yeah, you were wondering the why behind the what. And you did the same with the tail of a leopard gecko. Why is it hard to get color in the tail of a leopard gecko? Because there's less chromatophores on the tail of a leopard gecko. There's more fatty cells on the tail of a leopard gecko.
The fatty cells are blocking the color of, you know, cells.
These are good things to know, but, you know, leopard geckos have been around since the 80s, and I've never heard anybody talk that deeply about those two topics. So that's just a great example how something might sound silly like those topics, but we need to look into those things and we need to hear out people who are wondering the whys behind the whats, and it gives us a deeper understanding, and it leads to just a better hobby as a
because
whole.
we were talking about too about how like even just knowing why something doesn't work, you know what I mean?
Right.
We can always wonder why something does work, but we also should wonder why does this not work, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because when you find that answer, that can now spark a new topic on how something can work, or find a new
Correct.
solution to why it didn't work, or you know what I mean? It's always going to connect either way. So
A loophole. You might find a
yeah, a little
loophole.
loophole, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so
If you know why it
with the blue amber eye, it was driving me nuts because you know Tremper popped it out and then kind of dipped out of the hobby right after it happened. So not too much work was really done with it to get, I guess, that type of answer. And then because it's still it's not as new as Cypher, but it's still less to work with for sure than Cypher.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No,
It's
I
not
agree.
it's not very talked about. It's not very, and again, that goes back to the open discussion. There's not too much open discussion about blue amber eye and how it works, why it works, why is it when it's mixed with the albino, it doesn't turn red. It stays the same with versus the non-albino. And to me, it makes no sense why nobody would just go, well, every other eye gene turns red cross to an albino except for blue amber eye. So what is stopping the eye from doing that? And it couldn't. I just want to know, you know what I mean? Like what makes that so unique? It's just cool to understand it. And then digging deeper with you and talking with different people. At first, I came up with the whole. Well, I didn't come up with it, but doing research with ChatGPT and different things, it was genetic independence. Two genetic traits that independently will show without crossing. So you have the blue amber eye not crossing with the albino inside the eye, but it is still crossing with the body. You know what I mean? So with the eye, and then talking with you and you having me like, well, let's look into the physics of the eye. And I was like, why did I not think about that? So then, yeah, and then now it takes place with the iridophores, the xanthophores, the melanophores. Each one takes a part in it. So even though we don't have a fully solid answer on that, now we understand that maybe blue amber eye is increasing iridophores and xanthophores and decreasing melanophores, or it's blocking the melanophores. And you know what I'm saying? There's something going on. We still won't know, but now there's a closer idea to what is going on with that, because the xanthophores is what I think is the xanthophores is what gives the amber hue, and the iridophores gives off the blue hue. You know what I mean? And it's not actually blue. It's just a refraction of light. So again, it's not blue. So is it causing so many crystals that it's reflecting more blue light than normal? You know what I mean? So it was just one of those things like, how does it work? I just really wanted to understand how it worked. And so wouldn't know without asking why. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and this is where shed testing can also help, is
for sure.
Looking into the actual DNA code, we can see what is actually going on. Just like you talked about with all the chromatophores and the different colors, is there an imbalance or overproduction or a restricted production or something? So that's where
we know for sure it's blocking melanophores, or not even touching the melanophores whatsoever. But we still won't know without that shed testing. Like I said, some type of scientific stuff. And then the same thing with the tail. One day I was just like, everybody talks about carrot tails. Hard to get full carrot tails. It's very hard. Lots of line breeding, trait breeding. But why? Why is it so much harder to get the color? Because pattern will show up in the tail all the time versus the body. The body pattern will leave, but tail pattern will stay. So it's like, well, pattern's easy to keep in the tail for sure. But why is color not? It's always going to lavender out. Why does that happen? And so doing some research and stuff, and it makes sense. The fat cells are blocking the color cells because of the defense mechanism with the tail dropping off and leaving and regrowing. It's something blocking the color cells to compete with that. You know what I mean? So that was okay. So now I understand why it's harder to get color into the tail. You know what I mean? Granted, I can't do much with it. It is what it is, but now I understand it. You know what I mean? So
you know what, this is why you get better with open dialogue. So what that just made me think of right now is, have you ever watched or did you see my video about the layers of color? How I talk about the base layer. So the base layer are your chromatophores, your color cells, your xanthophores. And then on top of that, or like is the jacket, like, which is the black pigment that turns green or that turns purple, and then it turns green, and then sometimes it fades into the color of the animal. And then what I said was the spots, which is the top. I called it the top layer because that's the way that I perceive it.
Yeah,
but if
the
you think about it, black knights are real easy to get a solid black tail. It's hard to get a solid orange tail because those are from chromatophores. Those are from color cells, which from what we're talking about right now are like hidden underneath the fat cells. But maybe the melanophores, the black cells, them being on top makes it easier to get a black tail compared to like an all yellow tail or an all orange tail.
And that's interesting. And we're talking about it right now. It's something now I want to go research and find out. But
yeah, and I like that about you, man. You're about your research.
To me. It might be a silly thing, and it might end in a conversation in a week once we figure out the answer. But it's better than talking about what is my gecko going to eat, or why is it not growing today, or I don't know, something silly that's common.
This is deeper
deeper conversations. Yeah. I don't mind helping. Don't get me wrong, I will help for sure.
Yeah. No, but you are very helpful for sure.
Definitely like the deeper conversations, people that are trying to dig deep in certain things just to be more curious.
Right. And it's okay if you're wrong, but you have to
100%.
Put the boundaries, because the first person who said the globe is round probably got laughed at by all his other smart scientific peers around him, but he didn't give it up. And for good or for bad, he was going to find out one way or the other. So, all right. Sure. Let's talk about line bred percentages, because
I was just about to say with the black knight. Yep. I was just about to bring that up.
Yeah, that's a good segue. Black knight percentages are so commonly labeled. 50% black knight, 75% black knight, 87.5% black knight. Very common for black knights. Not so common for anything else that's line bred, like bold stripe, tangerine. I did see Thomas, Tucson's Finest Geckos, labeling his clowns with percentages a while back, but I don't know if he's still doing that now.
No, he still does. Yeah. Because I have one from him. It was like 94 point something % clown and like 6 something % inferno. So he stays on that for sure.
So why don't we talk a little bit about what is 100% and why do we have to put it in air quotes, and then how do we calculate percentages and what are some of the pros and cons of that? Why don't you define first?
That's a
what is 100
bite? That's a hard sandwich to bite there, man.
Yeah. I mean, if you want me to tackle
100%, 100% is sometimes fabricated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Most of these things are not 100%. You know what I mean?
Nothing technically is
100%. Almost nothing is pure. Nothing is 100%. It's all cross stuff. It's all mutts. They're all mutts. You know what I mean? It's just these are looking good and they stay consistently looking like this. And so, you know, boom, now you have that look. Goes back to the line thing. So you made a line, you got a consistent look. It's reproducing that look consistently. And now, you know, you added different things to make that line though. So now that you have a consistent look, it's 100% of what you were doing, but it's made up of 5% red diamond, 3% clown, bold stripe, this Halloween mask, and it's made up of all these other things to get that specific look. So nothing's ever really 100%, you know, especially with line bred traits. You know, if it's a trimper, it's 100% trimper. A lot of people, I guess, don't understand the percentage of het stuff too. Like, it's just a possibility. It doesn't mean 66% of the time you're going to get trimpers. It's either it's het or it's not. Until you prove that het, you have a 66% chance. Once you hit it, that 66 turns to 100. You know what I mean? Now you know it's 100%. Even 50%. You have a 50% chance. You either, you know, you might get it, you might not. And if you do, boom, you go back to 100% on that. So with those 100%, but yeah, line bred traits, nothing really is like 100% pure or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess it's good that we distinguish, first of all, Mendelian genetics. You can have like absolute percentages in Mendelian genetics, and those would be like albinos, white and yellow, Max Snow. But line bred genetics are like tangerine, bold stripe, black knight, like top 3 line bred genetics, clown, right? So those are kind of what we're talking about right now. And essentially, to keep it easy to understand, the breeders that developed these lines eventually got to a point where the expression of that line was at like 100% of the expression that they wanted to get out of that animal. And that started what would be quote unquote the percentage tracking, because percentage tracking probably wasn't a thing really until lines became established. So eventually, let's just take clown. It took probably like 5 years to get it to the point where like Matt probably named it. I don't know the exact terminology, but let's just use that example. Let's say it took Matt 5 years before he's like, you know what? This group of animals that I have is the expression that I was looking for. I am now going to name it, and these will be considered 100%. But what it took to get to that point was mixing and matching a whole bunch of stuff to begin with that maybe really wasn't percentage tracked. But now that we're at 100%, if you breed a clown to a non-clown, the babies will all be 50% clown, and the DNA keeps splitting in half every time that you breed that animal and outcross that animal and bring it back to other animals. So that's kind of what we're talking about as far as percentage tracking, which is different than Punnett squares and Mendelian tracking, which does have 50%, actual percentages that apply. So, but
for example, like when you have the two project animals, both 100%.
Yeah.
Cross them, you still will have 100% project animal. 2 red diamonds together, you produced a Tremper Tangerine, it's gonna red diamond. You take that one, you crossed it to an atomic, what you just got is now 50% red diamond line, but it is not a red diamond. It will not produce red diamonds. It will, you know what I mean, can't be het red diamond, but you lose 50% of that work because now you crossed it. And
here's where it gets even trickier is some of the genetics that made the red diamond line could have also been in the atomic line. So now you're actually overcrossing project lines that have been used with each other in the past from separate bloodlines. But
hold on, my bad. I was reading these Gex, but I got it over here, not on the screen. So it looks like I'm looking off, but trying to read what he was saying here. Pure line would mean for 2 parents of pure line determine lineage, and then when outcross comes to the I feel you.
Yeah. And I'm going to do a video on that too sometime soon, because and new people, this goes back to the research thing. New people.
That's funny. You just said you were going to do a video on pure.
Like Punnett square, line bred.
Yeah, because I was gonna do a video here soon on like pure.
Yeah, do it, because I don't know when I'm gonna do mine. But the more videos, the better, because here's another topic. Who else is making leopard gecko videos right now? Like nobody, which is one of the reasons why you decided you want to start making videos, right? And I think that's a good thing, because when we're talking about research, if you go to people behind the scenes, you're going to get like a lot of different opinions. But if you're watching a video, most likely the person who's putting on the video has already done a significant amount of research or talked to a bunch of people, and then they can kind of collaborate that info for you and regurgitate it to you in a short video.
Much. Yeah.
Now there's still always more to learn, but for the most part,
to go back to touching on the percentages of the lines though.
The
only reason like I saw with other people doing it with certain stuff, like a 50% purple head cross, you know what I mean? The one parent was pure purple head, or purely that line, and when you crossed it, now it's 50% of that line. And so what up, Tommy? And so the reason I started kind of doing it, if I know the percentages, now not all my geckos obviously have the percentage labeled on certain things and stuff like that, because sometimes it's too minuscule to like really dive into. But if you know what you started with for sure and can kind of keep track of it, it's cool. And the only reason I say that is because like I had somebody one time challenge me on it, like, why would you label 50% purple head, you know? And for my reasoning was, when you go, maybe somebody bought that animal and they want to add it to their project, they now know that 50% of inside this gecko is going to influence whatever they're crossing it to.
They know how strong it is.
Exactly. And with purple head, for example, why I kept using it, purple head's very strong. So like even if you cross it to something else, they're going to take on a purple head look more so than some random stuff or a collage. It's kind of going to lean more towards that side. Even with a smaller percentage, it still will lean towards that side. So the reason I would say like it's good to know that 50% is in there. So when you go to think of your project, you go to think of your pairing, you're like, okay, I'm going to need to compensate for that strong gene. Or if that's what you wanted to add, then cool too. But you'll know to compensate for it in the pairing. in your outcome. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then when you have the babies, you're like, why do they all look like this? Or, I thought they would end up maybe looking like that. Well, because this is stronger and you had a higher percentage of it in there. And so it kind of made your stuff go this way. And now you can know to either dilute it more or add on to it. You know what I'm saying? So it was just kind of for that aspect of it versus like, oh, it's a cross and it has this, this, and this, and this. Once you get to that point, percentages, yeah, it's just kind of out the door when you got so many lines mixed in. And then that's when, for 100% red diamond, red diamond has firebolt and bandit, this and that in it. So I guess another controversial thing too is you could take like a red diamond and a firebolt, cross them, and if they're trimpers, I guess technically it's still 100% red diamond. You know what I mean? Because it was used to make that. But that's not something people do. You know what I mean? Still, they would kind of see that and be like, nah, it's not it, because the firebolt didn't come from the red diamond line. But at the end of the day, it was used to make that line. So if this is only firebolt and you took it to that, it could still be labeled again. If it was a trimper that hatched out of it, it could still be labeled as a pure red diamond. You know what I mean? But that's a whole rabbit hole right there for sure.
Yeah, and I think the benefit really comes in. Let's just use bold stripe as an example, because a lot of people are familiar with bold stripe. You create the 2 black stripes going down. I brought it up at the beginning of this video. I have taken bold stripe animals, bred them to non-bold stripe animals, and I've gotten some of the offspring that actually hit with stripes. Now, the question is, that offspring that hit with the stripes, it's still a bold stripe because it's showing the stripes, but technically it only has 50% of the original line bold stripe DNA in it. So if I was to breed another animal to this one, I would most likely want 100% animal to breed to this 50% animal to carry on that strength of the 100%,
more of it into
to help that 50% along. Because if I was to breed 2 bold stripe animals, like let's say they're showing the stripes, but they're both only 50% DNA of actual bold stripe line, and you breed those together, you might not get as many visual expressions of bold stripe as you would compared to if you took 100% bold stripe line and bred it to a 50% bold stripe line. You get more out of that than a 50 to a 50. So that's where knowing the percentages can help you sort of jumpstart your project.
Either increase or, like I said, know to dilute and add something else to mix it up. But yeah, definitely that's why I do it for some stuff. Like I said, not everything. If I don't know the exact percentages, then I'm gonna just be like, yeah, it comes from these lines. But if I do know, and one of the parents is, a higher percentage of something, then I'll try to keep it going just for, the mindset of some people. A lot of people don't care, especially for pet people. They don't, they see all this stuff, throw it right out the window. But, for breeder stuff wise, yeah, of course, sometimes it matters. Sometimes it does. Just depends on the person, at the end of the day.
And this is a, maybe you have an opinion on this, but this is a sort of buyer beware situation. When you buy a car, you need to ask, has this car ever been in an accident? Yeah. You need to do the research to make sure that car is clean. It's the same with the gecko. If you see a gecko that's labeled red diamond Mandarin Inferno, that's actually something that I breed a lot of. I cross a lot of my quote unquote pure red diamond stuff into my quote unquote Mandarin Inferno stuff. I cross a lot of that for the diversity of tangerine lines. If you really want to be working a project in a specific direction, as the buyer, it can get kind of clunky to put the percentages in the title, right? Like 25.5% red diamond, 50.9% Mandarin, 17.5% Inferno. It can get clunky. So most breeders will just put the lines involved in the title, and then you, as the customer, have to ask that breeder, how much red diamond is in this animal? How much Mandarin is in this animal? And you should be doing those things if you are concerned about the percentages and the project lines that you're going to be working down the line. It's sort of a buyer beware situation, right? Like the customer has to ask
that. And then it's just like for even like snow, for example, like when you cross snow with tangerine stuff, it kind of really dilutes the snow a lot, where it'll yellow up, it'll no longer have that snow look, and it kind of disappoints a lot of people. So again, it goes back into percentages. If you want a certain look, you're now diluting it with something else, and you got to figure out, the combination correctly. or ingredients that you're using.
Okay. Well, let's end with our last two topics here. Color expectations and photos versus reality. This is something I have a decent amount of experience with. I feel like everybody has experienced this, right? You see you see a really colorful gecko online that's really expensive. You buy it, you receive it, and it looks nothing like the photo. It's washed out in color. Happens all the time in the leopard gecko world specifically. What do we want to say about this? Do we just want to warn people about it?
Don't do it. No, I'm just kidding. No, it happens, man. It sometimes, to be honest, I was thinking about it after we talked about it. It's might not even be that person's fault or intentions. You know, like for example, this is why I was thinking about it. Some people don't know how to work their cameras. You know what I mean? And so when they take those pictures, their intentions aren't to like make it look better than what it is or something, but their equipment, they didn't take the time to learn the equipment. So now their photos look messed up, and now they're being blamed for docking their photos or doing something when probably really didn't. You know what I mean? Because I've even seen people try to say that about John stuff, and I'm just like, come on, dude. He's taught us literally a whole podcast on how to use your camera and what to work on to get those good things. You know what I mean? So sometimes I wouldn't say necessarily it's like a bad intention from somebody. It might be they just don't know how to work their camera properly. They didn't have the proper lighting for that day, or they didn't realize their phone, changes the quality when they post it, or, stuff like that. But there is people that have done that. So there's a balance for sure. You just gotta ask those questions and stuff like, where'd you take this photo? Maybe can you take another one outside for me real quick? Or, you know what I mean? If you're really feeling some way about it. But it definitely does suck if you see a gecko and the pictures look super crazy, super orange saturated, and then you get it in person. You're like, this is like 4 shades lighter than.
That's a good way to describe it.
You know what I mean? And so you kind of get disappointed, and then you don't want to buy from that person, or, and then the group chats happen and all that bull crap. So I say if you're gonna take photos, really learn how to adjust your lighting, take your photos, and learn indoor and outdoor settings, because winter time comes, we can't always go outdoors, so you gotta, it's just some, if that's what you like to focus on. Some people don't care about their photos whatsoever. They'll shoot you a picture phone or phone picture and call it a day. You know what I mean? So it really just, I guess, comes down to the individual.
And one thing I've seen happen with black knights a lot is when you're taking a photo of a black knight from further away, it actually fills in some of the pattern just naturally from the camera. So people are, they're like, oh, wow, this gecko is really dark. And then they get it and it has a whole bunch of pattern. So if you're buying a black knight specifically, ask the breeder to take an up close photo, which is why all of my photos, if you ever look on my website of black knights, I always have super up close, super harsh lighting. And, I just personally don't want my customers disappointed, right? There's always going to be the market of people that make the animals specifically look better in the photo than the animal does in person. But to me, that's not good business practice, and that's not good for retaining happy customers. And
there's always going to be some shady people.
Yeah, I like to value happy customers. That's kind of one of the things that's really important.
Like what Deez was saying over here, it's always cool to have crappy photos, and then you get the gecko and they're more impressed with the gecko than the photo, versus the opposite. Like, oh, it looked a lot better in the photo. Matter of fact, that happened to me today. A guy got his geckos, made a reel, and was like, dude, way better than the pictures. I was like, oh, yes, appreciate it. So it's always good to hear when you hear that. I do take a lot of time with my photos and different things like that, like invested in different light boxes and different lights, cameras, tripods, all that stuff.
That would be a good video for you to do.
The lighting, you know what I mean?
Talking about how you did that, because I saw your photos prior to, we were talking recently, and you learned about like the ISO settings and the camera and the lighting and all that. So that might be a video worth considering doing.
One day, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, teaching people. So, okay, so that's pretty good. Buyer beware again. Just be careful. There's a lot of photos out there that look way better than the animal. And there's a lot of people out there that are just kind of doing it nonchalantly, but there's a lot of people that are doing it on purpose too, just to get the sale and to get some extra money. So be careful. Last topic. Actually, this is a great topic that ended on the power of outcrossing and the negative side of breeding pures to pures. So the two topics kind of coincide. We were talking about this specifically with the clown morph or line or genetic, whatever you want to call it.
Oh yeah.
A lot of times, if you breed two pure clowns to each other, a lot of times the babies won't have as much colorful orange or as much bright greens or whatever, compared to one of the things that I do is I almost always breed a clown, like a pure clown to a pure tangerine, just because I feel like the tangerine from the tangerine will help increase the tangerine in those offspring, and then the wonky pattern from the clown will get passed on to the babies, and then the emerine color from the tangerine will mix with the emerine color from the clown. It's just a good mixture, and that's the power of outcrossing. So why don't you speak?
Yeah. We were talking about that just because of like John mentioned on another show where he was like, I don't want you doing purple head. Like nobody should be doing purple head pairings, you know, like should always be outcrossing. And it's true. Like if something's already has a look for it, why are we gonna just keep recreating that same look over and over and over? And not saying like you shouldn't, some people, but if everybody's doing that, then you're not creating anything, you know what I'm saying? And so
too much inbreeding at that
it's gonna cause too much inbreeding within that. But again, like for the clown stuff, so like you were saying, when they hatch, super fire, they'll have that pattern, the wavy little orange stuff, and then the greens will come, the pattern will fade, and then by the time you got an adult, it's yellow and looks whack, and you're just like, dude, what happened? And so that comes from, like you said, pure to pure. You know, sometimes it works for certain things, but for me, like with clown, that's why I didn't really get into them, is because by the time adulthood, they look like crap, and I didn't really like that. For breeding leopard geckos, I always felt like going away from yellow was always like a natural goal, because they're naturally yellow. So when you're increasing different yellow stuff in the morphs, to me, I was just like, it's kind of boring. They're already kind of like that. You know what I mean? But the pattern and that phase and that change they go through is super dope if you can get it to stick. So if you consistently keep putting the same thing, and they keep having that same outcome, nothing's going to improve. So adding that tangerine to the clown and constantly adding it back, now you're going to get some nice rich tangerine clown stuff, holding the color, not washing out the yellow, you know, and just looking a little bit more vivid and popping, and staying like that into adulthood. So it would just be better to outcross, you know, for most things, you know. Nothing is pure, like we talked about. So consistently trying to just pair the same thing, it's just kind of a waste of time sometimes, you know, depending on if you have a specific project and you're trying to lock a look and then go somewhere. Cool. If you have a plan to the madness, go for it. But just on average, if you're just pairing stuff to pair stuff, and it's like, oh, well, this matches this, like, let's think deeper on it. Think a little bit harder. Is this going to improve whatever this one is? Is it going to wash out and look whack? Is there no point in it? Like, you know what I mean? Just put more thought into what you're doing. So when you're taking those lines and pure to pure, you know, you're just going to keep getting like a very similar look. So consistently outcrossing, and just like I said, the Firebolt red diamond stuff, Firebolt was used into red diamond, so cross it to that, you know what I mean? And take the Tremper stuff, or Firebolt head Tremper, take that Tremper stuff and then keep line breeding it to add more of the look, but you're not just taking two of the same thing back to back, you know what I mean? Adding a certain ingredient back into it. Take a Halloween mask next year, add it back into it. But definitely should always be adding genes, because I was telling you too, you think about it, every time you pair something, you're subtracting. A lot of people don't think about that. Every time you pair, it's only 50% of whatever you put together, and then pair 50% less, 50% less. It's going to keep doing that. So you have to subtract, add, subtract, add, subtract, add. You know what I mean? It's going to constantly be a math equation. And so a lot of people, like I said, they won't think about that. It's just more of like, oh, it's the same thing, same genetic, and we'll pair it.
Right.
But outcrossing is for a reason, keeping the geckos healthy, less inbreeding, you know, improving on certain traits and genetics, you know, and just creating more stuff. So
I think it takes the best features of both projects in a perfect scenario. It takes the best features of both lines, and it makes them accentuate each other in the offspring. But also sometimes breeding pure to pure, you actually get less colorful animals, like talking about the clown stuff, just because it's like an overabundance of washed out DNA when you should be adding in, like, clown naturally needs more tangerine added into it, because otherwise the yellow, the greenish yellow when they're kind of younger, will just turn straight yellow once they get older if you don't have enough like tangerine in there. So to me, from my experience, you constantly need to be pumping tangerine into clown to keep good looking animals, which I know you've showed me some clowns recently that you're pretty excited about, and we're excited to see how those age out. But more people that have been outcrossing clowns have been seeing really good results, especially Bubba. When Bubba was here, he had some of the best looking clowns with his clown Inferno
crosses. Yeah, when you started,
and, you know, one of the reasons Inferno is specifically known to have like green emerine color, like the green banding in it, if I'm remembering correctly, compared to some other tangerine lines, which has no green color, or the green color is like severely washed out. But if you think about it, that really worked well with clown, because the green color in Inferno plus the tangerine color of Inferno worked really well with the green color in clown and the existing tangerine in clown. So yeah, you do need, it's smart to consider strengthening your pure lines and considering how to keep them looking good. But I'll give one more example, which is the Black Knight. I almost never will breed a quote unquote 100% Black Knight to 100% Black Knight, because that's why they're so small to begin with. Your average Black Knight
issue from the inbreeding.
Your average Black Knight is only 40 to 50 grams, depending on whether they're male or female. And one of the reasons for that is so much inbreeding to get that color. So like when you look at like even the Asian markets, they have some of the best Black Knights in the world, honestly, like color wise and stuff. But a lot of them are kind of smaller, kind of skinnier, kind of thinner. There's a ton of inbreeding that goes on in those countries, just mass producing and mass inbreeding. But there is a benefit to Black Knight from outcrossing. And one of the benefits is, I've discussed this in my video, you only need a quote unquote 100% Black Knight. You only need to breed that to a 50 to 75% Black Knight to get some babies that are pitch black, but then those babies will have more diverse DNA. So you don't have to breed a pitch black gecko to a pitch black gecko to get pitch black babies. As a matter of fact, when you do that, you're kind of running the risk of inbreeding problems, fertility problems, continuing to make the animals smaller. But when you outcross, you can still achieve pitch black animals with 50 to 100% to 75% Black Knight. I usually make it female. So like I'll take 100% male and I'll breed him to like 50% or 75% females. And then 1 or 2 out of their babies might be what I call an S tier, which is like a pitch black animal. And then like 50% of their babies might be like A or B tier. And then 25% of the babies might be like C or D tier. But still, you're getting a wide variety of DNA infused into all of those babies compared to just breeding animals that are already really inbred to each other. You're going to run the risk of health issues and stuff. So
no, for sure. I don't know. Deez, what were you talking about? No, it's not at all. And then Gauge Boy, yes, I agree. You know, don't give up. Keep going, my boy. Breed. No, I was kidding.
Cool. Well, anything else on that topic of the power of outcrossing and understanding pure lines? I mean, a lot of people think pure is good. Like they'll pay more for pure, but people need to break that. People need to break that mentality. It's pure is not always better, and it doesn't always represent the best image of what that project is supposed to look like. For example, I have some pure clowns that just look like crap. But then I got some 50% clowns that I've crossed to like my Mandarin Inferno stuff, and they look really good, right? So it's what do you actually want? Would you rather want the pure clown that looks like crap or the 50% clown that actually looks fire? You got to consider.
See, that's where open dialogue and discussing these things, because a lot of people just fall into place. They see something, heard something, and then, oh, that's how it is, versus like just looking a little bit past it, or trying to understand it. Why is it like that? You know what I mean? Or why are these priced so high compared to crosses? You know what I mean? So it just goes to doing more research and just asking why. You know what I mean? So always outcross, definitely going to strengthen your lines and your projects. It's going to add more variety. You might pop something cool that you didn't think was going to happen. You know, now it just changed your project for the better.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you never know. I mean, there's always a method to it, you know, so find something to complement what you're doing or expand on it, you know what I'm saying? And just keep going. Like you said, don't give up.
Yeah. So why don't we end it a little bit? Why don't we end it by you saying your goals for your YouTube channel and why you've started posting more videos on YouTube
Oh
recently?
yeah, for sure. So I mean, it's fun, dude. The bottom line for me, it's just fun talking about the geckos, showing off geckos, and you know that excitement of sharing what you're doing. You know, I'm one of those people. I'm obsessed with this shit for real, for real. Like I'm looking at geckos all day. I'm thinking about geckos all day. My girlfriend's talking to me, and I'm looking at geckos. I don't even hear her.
Yeah.
So I'm obsessed with this stuff, probably more than what I should be. You know what I mean? So that's why I started doing the YouTube. I just wanted to share what I'm doing without just, I don't know, having a place to do it, and just share what I'm doing, talk about it, let people come and talk to me about it, and just have a good time. So again, it goes back to what you were saying too. There's not too many people out there putting out a lot of leopard gecko content. And if they are, most of it's care, top five this or
Yeah,
something
not
very,
breeder, not
yeah,
breeder
something very
content.
simple, or something that you can look up. There's going to be 30 videos on it. You know what I mean? Same topic. So I wanted to do more advanced topics, more advanced education. Not that I'm opposed to basic stuff, but once you learn so much of the basic stuff, you know, it gets repetitive to talk about those things with certain people. So, you know what I mean? I don't mind sharing new stuff, but definitely always love the more advanced conversations, because I like to learn the things. I don't mind teaching people, but I'm also wanting to learn. So that's why I want to do it. So just again, just to be out there and spread more gecko content and talk geckos with people and share my passion. You know,
Yeah.
I'm at
And
home. I got nothing else
that's
to do.
your YouTube channel, right? House of Reps and Exotic Pets
I
pinned
don't think
in.
the and is in there, but on
It's
the
just
YouTube. Yeah, I
House of
think just
Reps
House of
Exotic
Reps
Pets.
Exotic Pets, I think, on your YouTube.
Okay, perfect. Well, if somebody types that in on Google or whatever, they'll definitely find that.
No, for sure.
So,
That's why I said make sure you type leopard gecko with it.
yeah.
I don't know if I might need to change my name on YouTube, because apparently I've had quite a few messages like, "Hey, dude, I've been trying to find you, and it's just a bunch of politics popping up and the House of Representatives." I'm like, well, I
That's
don't know what to
funny.
tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Well,
just the main goal, man, is just to share my projects and passions, talk more gecko stuff with people, and you know, get outside of the little circle within the hobby, and just expand to more circles, more people, and you know, spread that leopard gecko cheer.
yeah, I think leopard geckos are probably still the #1 pet lizard sold in the world, along with bearded dragons and now crested geckos. Those are like the top three.
Top
But I
three.
do think, yeah, I do think leopard geckos might even be #1. They're so popular. But our
Maybe
hobby,
I
the
would
what?
say bearded dragons.
Yeah, bearded dragons are pretty popular too.
Because
But
even when I was a kid, I knew what those were before I knew what a leopard or a crested gecko. I didn't know what a leopard gecko
yeah.
was until 2020, when I seen my first one.
Oh, well, I had
Yeah,
my first leopard gecko was in the '90s. I was like 8 years old in the '90s. Yeah.
dude, what are you,
And I
like
just
60?
gravitated to it because I think they look kind of cool. To me, they look like
Mhm.
little dinosaurs, kind of. So I
No, for sure.
gravitated to it.
Especially without
Uh,
being sticky. I don't know why the sticky makes them cooler to me, being not sticky. You know what I'm saying? They're
yeah,
more
me
of
too. I don't like
like a real dinosaur or something, like a real land
right.
animal. You know, I
Yeah,
don't know
you
why
want
the
to see
sticky
a
part
T-Rex
to me.
crawling up the wall, right?
Well, that is, to me, it more correlates with bugs for some reason. Like, you know,
Yeah.
bugs are climbing up the walls, crawling on walls, and now I got this gecko climbing up the wall. I'm like, no, get down here, dude, and chill with me.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
cool. And
I like
you're gonna shoot to run some leopard gecko interviews on your channel too, right? So that we could have more breeder
yeah,
talk going on in
possibly,
the
definitely.
hobby. And
I don't want to do like a podcast per se, like I said, and
yeah,
more so just be like YouTube videos with another person, and just talk it up geckos, show off geckos. That is one thing I want to do more on my channels, show more geckos. Like, you
yeah,
do show a lot of geckos and stuff like that, but I notice a lot of people, if it comes to content, it's more of just, we're gonna talk to you about these things and not show too much. And if we do
right.
show, it's an example photo up here, and You know, I want you to see the gecko. I want you to see it moving around, hopping around, being active, and all its glory. Because yeah, we talk breeder stuff all day, but they're pets. We enjoy them
Right.
because of what they bring us joy. Watching them be silly, you know, just like a dog. You watch your dog chase its tail, you're gonna laugh and, you know, be happy for a moment, you know, until it
Right.
realizes and stops. So same thing with these geckos. I like watching them climb. Like watching them look at you and
Oh, they
realize
do
you're
that.
there and come to you, and you know, all those silly things. And you know, so they're just cool pets.
Well, that's awesome, man. So keep an eye out for House of Reps Exotic Pets on YouTube, Instagram. And I'm sure we will have you back to chop up some more breeder conversations and controversial type topics, you know, kind of like we talked about tonight, and
Oh yeah,
seeing both
we'll have
sides
you
of
on my
it.
channel with a little controversial topic.
Yeah, keep an eye out. We're supposed to
We'll
be
help you out here.
yeah, we've been talking behind the scenes. We're supposed to make a feature on House of Reps new YouTube, not new, but I guess
Oh
springing
yeah,
forth.
I've had the channel for 15 years, but only
Yeah,
posted my breakdancing video on there, and then I use it to watch battles and dance videos. So definitely, I mean, I did post a lot of shorts, YouTube shorts with leopard gecko and reptile stuff, but never actually any videos. So now that I'm starting the videos, it's pretty fun. I like doing it.
yeah.
Yeah,
And you know, somebody told me this a while back. Do you know the number one search engine in the world if someone has a question?
Google.
It's Google. Do you know the number two?
Ask Cheebs. I don't
It's
know.
YouTube. The
Oh,
number two is
YouTube.
YouTube.
No, that's so funny
And
because I go to
sometimes
YouTube
Google
immediately. Like,
recommends,
how do I do this?
yeah, sometimes Google actually recommends a video when you
Yeah,
type in a
it's
question.
here's a
It
video
shows
on
you
what
some
you need to
videos.
do.
And so that's why it's so important. And I know you and I have discussed that. We just want to encourage people. Like, if you're excited about leopard geckos, make that content, you know, and we'll be here to support you. And if you're wrong about things, you know, we'll come to you. We'll let you know, or feel free to ask us questions so that you don't have to make a
Just
video
remember,
of being wrong.
it's okay to be wrong. We're all
Yeah, and
wrong.
it
We're
is
all
okay
human.
to be.
We all
It is
make
okay to
mistakes.
be wrong.
This guy's done it. I've done it. We've all made mistakes. It's just
Even
how you move forward. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Find solutions. Don't make the
yeah.
same
Learn
mistake. Learn
learn
from your
from your mistakes. That was one thing that Brian Barczyk, the great and late Brian Barczyk, did is, yeah, he learned from his early days. He learned, and he did a lot better, and he created a lot more wholesome content later
sure.
on down the line. And he actually became, I would still say he's probably the number one most influential reptile channel in the entire world that
Oh,
people
for sure.
actually look to. And he's not even with us anymore. If he was with us, it would be even more. But he's definitely left a legacy of just sharing the love of reptiles online and doing as good for these creatures as we can, which is something that I'm trying to be better at myself. Is we want to show these creatures in the best light possible, which is why I really like your setup. You got bigger than average tubs for individual leopard geckos, and I think that sets a great example for new people coming in to like do the most that you can for these animals. And your people on the other side of the camera that are watching your videos, they will appreciate it, they will like it, and they will follow you.
Oh, well, I guess before we sign off, I'm going to touch on that. You just
Mhm.
brought up a whole nother topic from your interviews on Friday. I
Yeah.
didn't want to argue with the guy, but I'll make my point here for that really
Mhm.
quickly. Because like you said, individual, you know, breeders, they're kept individually. I don't
Yep.
cohab. I don't agree with cohabbing, but people change their mind. And now after certain things, I do agree with cohabbing only to a certain extent, do with certain research. And you know, so I don't think new keepers at all should just go buy geckos, cohab them, and be like, yeah, I'm cohabbing. I definitely think it's something you should do actual research first, get a gecko, learn that gecko's itself, because each gecko has their own personality, learn that gecko's traits and movements and how it conducts itself. Get a second gecko. Don't put them together. Watch that one. How does it react? Is it a little bit more aggressive? Do you see it moving faster when it eats, or you know, just different things? Pay attention to their physical, you know, movements, and then put them together if you'd like, and monitor that and keep track and keep notes. Do you notice any nipping? Do you notice breeding season's not happening, but you notice there's a lot more biting going on? You know, is one thinning out versus the other one? Why is that? Well, if you didn't do your research, you don't know why. You should have did research before that happened, so you know why. not after the fact. You know what I mean? So you know one's eating more than the other. So it's just one of those things that I feel like it's for more experienced keepers, not for
Yeah.
people who just want to grab two geckos and put them together. I'm not saying we're all people. It's America. Do what you want. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna hate you for it either. I don't care about that. If you lost your gecko because of your actions, that's on you. And the
Yeah.
reason I say that is because I went through that. I got a gecko, put them together, and I came in one day and his leg was gone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
after his leg was gone, he proceeded to decline and pass away. And he was the only super snow I ever owned in my life. And he was super cool. His name was Ninja. And so I loved him. He was a pet, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so cohabbing killed him. Now, again, I'm not going to say it's terrible. Some people get lucky, like we talked about. Some people get lucky, cohab some geckos, and never have issues. And that's great. 100% awesome. No shade to it. But again, it's not something that I would recommend. And I would wait until you understand your geckos, do more research, get a have a gecko as a pet for a year, 2 years for sure. You know, not a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, and like, yeah, I got it. And like, it takes a little bit more time. You know what I mean? Like we said, you've been keeping longer than me. I've been keeping only 5 years, and you still learn things every day about these guys. You know, different things that maybe you didn't pay attention to before, but was told, and then one day it clicks a year later. You know, so it takes that time to study and watch the mannerisms of your gecko. So before you
Right.
just put them together. So that was my 2 cents on cohabbing. Like I said,
No, that's good.
experienced keepers, not really for new keepers. And if you want, that's your end goal is to cohab, then make sure you're doing as much research as possible. Again, studying the geckos and just
Yeah.
watch for behavior.
Which I have
Yeah.
2 videos on cohabbing females because I do currently group breed. I've experimented with 4 females to a group, 3 females to a group, and 2 females to a group. And this
Exactly.
year, I'm only doing 2 females to a group. There's a couple reasons for that. I think the male gets to both those females easier. It's not as much of a waste of his time compared to like 3 and 4 females. He might be like double or triple breeding 1 or 2 of the girls and like not breeding the other ones. So for that reason, but also to back you up and to support you, I've had really, really tame, nice geckos do some gnarly damage to each other when put in a group. Similar to you, I had a girl that like almost pretty much bit off a girl's elbow for the most part. And these are 2 geckos that were very, very nice mannered geckos. So I never recommend cohabbing, but if somebody talks to me and they're dead set on it, I will give them the ways to do it.
Best,
You have,
best
you know,
example you can, but yeah.
yeah, I'll do
It
the
was
best
funny
I
as you
can with
said
them.
you were going to help and agree with me, and as soon as you said, I don't know if you saw my face, I was instantly about to disagree with you. But I don't know if you know my stance on group breeding. And again, this
Yeah,
goes back to open dialogue. Just because I'm about to disagree with Frank does not mean I'm going to hate him or whatever
right.
or talk shit. He can do what he does. Again, it's America. Do what you want to do. At the end of the day, you still get the same outcome as most. You produce healthy geckos, pets for people, and they love them. Lots of people love them. You know, you get great reviews. A lot of people, follow you for that. So I don't agree with group breeding. You know what I mean? I will
Yeah,
never do it. And prime examples because of what I just said. I lost a gecko for it, so I will never do it.
right.
But on top of just losing a gecko when it comes to breeding, I won't group breed for a couple of reasons. And it's because if you run into an issue with the babies, who is the mom that caused the issue? Who is the dad that caused the issue? It's going to be harder for you to pinpoint that issue. You know what I mean? Say
Right.
you popped out something super dope. Which parent did it come from? You know what I mean? Granted, you can still figure those things out. It'll just take a little bit more time. But again, it's just harder to pinpoint the bad stuff where this gecko got sick or who's laying more eggs than the other one or who's not or whatever. There's always going to be some type of complication that you might not be able to answer because there's too much going on and you're not watching 24/7. Oh, she went and laid the egg. You know what I mean? So it's harder
Right.
to trace back to which parent is which. Then it limits certain pairings because you have to keep like geckos together in a group to get that certain genetic, right? You're going to put 2 bold stripe females with a bold stripe male. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that way, oh, I'm getting bold stripes out of this group versus hatch something crazy and you're like, which parent was it? I don't know. Which one had that DNA? Who was het for this? I don't know which one was het. You know, it just kind of eliminates that headache of backtracking even more information. Negative and positive, like I said. So that's kind of my main reasons of why I don't do it. It's just easier to keep separately. Like I don't even do the overnight thing. Like a lot of people like, yeah, pop them in overnight and then the next day pop. No, I watch them weirdly, call me a weirdo, whatever. I'm gonna make sure they lock. As soon as they lock,
I watch
make sure they go back into their tub. You know, I'm not gonna leave overnight, but I will come back the very next day, same time next day. Boom, put you back in there, let you lock for a second time, and then put you away. So everybody has their own way of keeping. So I'm not gonna knock you for group breeding. I'm not personally gonna do it, but to each their own. You get the same results. You still got healthy babies, and that's where people forget. You know, and they want to harp on the, oh, he group breeds, I'm gonna attack him. I'm like, no, bro, I don't care. He does it, I'm not gonna do it. But that's it. I have my reasons, you have your reasons, and that's it. We don't need to bump heads over it and cry about it, whatnot. But
that's certainly a good topic to
my 2 cents on it. So
yeah,
that's something we do, but some people like to do that.
Right. And just to keep it short, the only thing I'll say for people to consider amongst this topic that a lot of people don't consider is, let's say you breed one male and female together 1 year. That female can hold on to that male sperm for up to 3 breeding seasons. So technically, it's been scientifically studied that a reptile can hold sperm for up to 3 breeding seasons. So if you were to breed another male to that female the year after, she might actually have sperm from the male the year before. So going back to the group breeding thing about like kind of being unsure of where things pop out, totally get it, respect it. But what people don't think about is that can still happen even with a single female.
No, for sure. Right when you said it, I was like, oh, so it can still happen without group breeding.
A lot of people don't
again,
think about
same thing, but that goes to my other reason. So yeah, you might cancel out that one, but the physical aspect of it, you know what I mean? Where all my geckos still have their limbs after breeding. So you know what I mean? Where, you know, they still have their tail, and I can keep him for another day and not have to worry about if he's going to die or she's going to die or whatever, whatnot. So just for less complications,
less risk.
Less risk. You don't want to risk investments. You know what I mean?
I get it. Yeah.
Not always. With live animals, you want to take as much less risk as possible. You know what I mean? And keep them healthy and happy as much as possible and interact with them yourself versus, you know, leaving it to the other geckos to do it because they might get a little feisty. But
yeah.
This is my
leopard geckos got some teeth. They got some teeth to them. They can do some damage.
Man, they got some teeth for sure. People are like, oh, it doesn't hurt. I'm like, yeah, it's because they let go. Let one really clamp onto you and thinking it's breeding right now and start twitching on you. You're gonna be like, oh shit, let go.
Did you see my video of the leopard gecko that death rolled on the paper towel? It was a hyper aggressive male, and I was literally, he bit a paper towel, and I was kind of like holding him, and he was hanging from the paper towel. But I've had like 1 or 2 males that are hyper aggressive, and I've gotten bit by those. They will easily shear off some skin, and you'll be bleeding everywhere. So
not like a little bit of blood. It's gonna pour.
It's gonna pour. Now we don't want to scare people off. Those are the ultra rare scenarios. But when you're a breeder and you run into a male that's just like aggressively minded because of the pheromones in the room or whatever, and he gives you a good wallop, they can do some damage. So
you know what I'm saying? Some people like to be a little hardcore with it, so some geckos can get a little extra.
Yeah, there you go.
Waggy, you know what I mean?
There's the PG way of saying it, but thanks for coming on, man. We're gonna definitely shoot to have you on again and shoot the breeze on some other topics, leopard gecko related, that we could talk about. Like I said, look for me on House of Reps channel, because as of right now, we're gonna do an episode on some pretty cool topics on his channel, and you're gonna be experimenting with your own live streaming software probably for the first time or first.
I must try to figure it out. This pain in the neck headache stuff.
Yeah, you'll get
a lot harder than just shooting a video for sure. So
well, that's awesome, man. Any last words of encouragement, inspiration, critique?
Do your research.
Hey, that should be how you end your videos. You should create like a music video to like, and it'll be like, do your research with like a rap beat behind it and something like that.
Spinning on my head. Do your research.
Oh yeah, because you can do a head spin. By the way, for those of you who don't know, Reese was/is a breakdancer, and he can actually spin on his head, which is pretty crazy. and
good
amongst other things, doing arm stands and all kinds of stuff that you do. But thank you so much for being here, man. I guess we'll get going. I'll exit out the stream and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, go follow me on YouTube. Peace.
Yep. House of Reps Exotic Pets. See ya, brother.